Elbaf may very well be on its way to be the best arc in One Piece. Yes, I'm 100% serious as I say this. Elbaf has the potential to surpass Egghead, Wano, Whole Cake Island, Enies Lobby, and even Marineford. We have only just started the Elbaf arc in the manga, but let me spoil you on the 10 things that will absolutely 100% happen during the course of this arc. Though before we continue, how about liking the video and also subscribing to the channel, guys? Here at AJ Anime, we make quick yet in-depth videos on all things anime, so as long as that's your thing, you're guaranteed to have a good time. With that said, here are the 10 things that will definitely happen in the Elbaf arc. Starting with the first one, Luffy is going to finally realize that he is now the Sun God Nika, and a lot of people believe he is their deity. Vegapunk already confirmed in chapter 1114 that Nika is a legend from Elbaf. In chapter 1111, when Dory and Broggy reunite with Luffy, they make a comment on how Luffy looks like Nika. Of course, Luffy doesn't understand, but he does make sure to say that they can talk about it later. Seriously, guys, it has been 2.5 years since chapter 1044 came out. Luffy still has no idea about the true nature of his awakening and what it means in the overall context of the One Piece world. But because Nika itself originates from Elbaf, this is where Luffy will learn the truth of his fruit, and as you can expect, that's going to bring some insane implications for his character. We know that Luffy doesn't want to be someone important, he just wants to be free. How is he going to stand the fact that the Giants and the Buccaneers, as well as all the slaves around the world, believe him to be their god? Exactly. Elbaf is going to be an arc where we see the most significant character development for Luffy's character since the trauma he experienced because of Ace's death. The second thing that's definitely going to happen is the reunion with Vivi. I wasn't completely sure about this one until chapter 1126. There is a reason why Oda separated Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, and Chopper from the rest of the crew. These 6 Straw Hats are the ones who shared the X mark symbol of friendship with Vivi during the climax of the Alabasta arc. Now, of course, we don't need to look too deep into it, but guys, Vivi is already on the run. We know that Imu is after her, and we also know that one day the Straw Hats and Vivi were going to meet anyway. It was foreshadowed all the way back in Alabasta that there will be a reunion, and Vivi will one day once again set sail with the Straw Hats as their nakama. The current is the perfect time for the reunion, because Elbaf's likely the last independent story arc before the literal final stretch of the Straw Hats' journey. The third thing that's definitely happening in this arc is the lore regarding the ancient weapon Uranus. This one is going to be a little ambiguous because I genuinely have no idea how Oda is going to tackle this, but hear me out. Uranus is the god of the sky, Elbaf has the world tree Yggdrasil, and it's a fact that Elbaf and the Giants have direct parallels with Norse mythology. Yggdrasil likely stretches all the way to the skies, because I mean, just look at how tiny the homes of the Giants seem in front of Yggdrasil. Plus, I'm sure most of us have already seen that fan art of Usopp holding Mjolnir, aka the ancient weapon Uranus. Sure, Imu has the weapon right now, but you know what? We never got any confirmation that the weapon that destroyed Lulusia is actually Uranus. Maybe Imu has another ancient weapon? Maybe he has a replica of Pluton. We don't know. But I can say with absolute certainty that even if Uranus is not on Elbaf, the island has a connection with this ancient weapon, and therefore will definitely be getting some lore on Uranus. In chapter 1127, there was a shape-shifting cat that served as the first opponent of the arc. The Straw Hats took care of the cat right in the same chapter, but let me tell you that this is related to a myth from the Norse mythology where Thor tries to lift a cat, which later turns out to be the world serpent Jormungand. But you know what? Jormungand, the world serpent, the giant serpent cloaked in blood, was mentioned in chapter 129 by Dory and Broggy of all people. Fishman Island and Wano both had an ancient weapon. It wouldn't be right if the Yggdrasil tree in Elbaf and the god of the sky Uranus don't have a connection. It's too fitting for there to be no connection between these two. The fourth thing is, of course, the relevance of Mad Monk Arouge. Oda has obviously been saving the best supernova for last. We knew that Bonnie is related to Kuma since Reverie, but who knew that she'd get such a legendary story arc? Now, even though it's not confirmed that Arouge is related to Elbaf, it'd be a genuine surprise if he's not. Every other supernova has already had their relevance in various different New World arcs. Arouge hasn't. He hasn't even met Luffy. For all you know, Luffy may meet Arouge at the top of the world tree Yggdrasil. The fifth thing is about the tearful reunion between Saul and Robin. This moment is going to be emotional on its own, but let's not forget that Robin will be learning a lot of new things from all the books that Saul brought from Ohara to the Library of Elbaf. Ironically, Saul told Robin that he is not like those ruffians from Elbaf, but Elbaf was the only place he could take those books, and now Elbaf is where Robin and Saul are going to have their reunion. Moving on to the sixth thing, we have something that was mentioned all the way back in chapter 800. When the Straw Hat Grand Fleet was formed, the narrator declared that the Straw Hat Grand Fleet will eventually cause a great incident of historic proportions, and I truly believe that this will happen in Elbaf. In Egghead, we've already had 2 of the 7 captains strike a celestial dragon, while Bartolomeo picked a fight with the Red Hair Pirates, an Emperor crew. They beefed with the celestial dragons and an Emperor in the same arc. That's already so much worse than anything we've ever seen any other fleet do in One Piece. And guys, they did what they did out of their own independence. He knows what he said in chapter 800, and considering how Elbaf is going to be the last major story arc before literally the endgame itself, this is the perfect opportunity to cause that great incident of historic proportions. Oda has not forgotten about the Grand Fleet at all. The final war is going to have too many factions and big players for the Straw Hat Grand Fleet to stand out. Besides, Elbaf is an island located in a region called Warland. We're talking about a stretch of sea that is constantly at war. If a war doesn't happen in this region while the Straw Hats are there, what is even the point of calling the region Warland? Oda has been making the Grand Fleet more relevant. We are now in a stretch of a sea called Warland, and fleets are what's required to wage war on seas. The specifics of the great incident of historic proportions don't matter. It could be Blackbeard, the world government, the Marines, or even the Holy Knights. What matters is that it's happening in Elbaf. And guys, this ties into the 7th thing that's guaranteed to happen. For the longest time, One Piece fans have debated extensively over how a reunion between Luffy and Shanks is going to play out. Well, there's no other way to go about it. The whole thing with Bartolomeo burning the flag of the Red Hair Pirates and then the entire altercation between Bardo Club and the Red Hair Pirates is literally the perfect setup for some actual, genuine beef between Luffy and Shanks. Oda went out of his way to make the Red Hair Pirates leave and give Bartolomeo payback for burning their flag. This plot point happened right before the Straw Hats arrived on Elbaf. Guys, I know this has been said before, but allow me to say it again. Luffy won't ignore the fact that the Red Hair Pirates blew up a friend's crew. Yes, the Straw Hat Grand Fleet follows Luffy of their own volition, but Luffy has already declared that he considers them his friends. Plus, just like how Shanks had an obligation to reprimand Bartolomeo for burning his flag, Luffy now has an obligation to respond. Otherwise, the title of an emperor becomes meaningless. The whole narrative about Luffy giving back his straw hat is about him becoming a great pirate of the sea. It wouldn't make sense for Luffy to just ignore the whole scenario with Bartolomeo and drink with Shanks. Luffy knows better. He is an emperor of the seas. He won't ignore the most basic, the most fundamental thing about what it means to be a pirate. He won't ignore the fact that if someone hurts your friend, you don't just forgive them and move on. Indeed, a conflict between 2 emperors is going to happen in Elbaf. It's also rather poetic how it's going to happen on the Land of Warriors, not to mention all the theories about how Shanks is based on Tyr, the Nordic god of war. Of course, this also brings us to the next thing, which is Usopp versus Usopp. It's interesting how Usopp is the one who blew up going Luffy Senpai. Oda made sure that the ship is destroyed from a distance by a sniper. This was to touch upon Usopp's relevance and how he takes initiatives as a member of the Red Hair Pirates. Unlike Shanks, he doesn't care that Bartolomeo was basically Usopp's subordinate. Business is business. You bet he would have destroyed Going Merry himself if he was a Straw Hat instead of Usopp. Oda has built this subtle but also hard-to-ignore contrast between Usopp and Usopp. Again, it's not like the Straw Hats and the Red Hair Pirates will kill each other, but there's going to be beef, and it's going to be just a little bit more heated than the Roger Pirates versus the Whitebeard Pirates we saw in chapter 966. Now, we have 2 more things that will definitely happen in Elbaf. There's Usopps Dream. Elbaf is the arc where he becomes the brave warrior of the seas one way or the other. Now, I know that many One Piece fans joke about this and say things like how Wano was also supposed to be Zoro's arc and how Egghead was supposed to be Frankie's arc, but come on guys, that comparison is disingenuous. Elbaf is to Usopp what All Blue is to Sanji, and what Laugh Tale is to Luffy. It's where he achieves his dream. If you think Oda is going to fumble this one, you don't have any idea how much he loves Vikings. Back when Oda was growing up, his favorite show was Vicky the Vikings. In fact, remember that kid from the Elbaf War who wanted to join Shanks? He looks like the main character from Vicky the Vikings. You bet Oda can't wait to draw what is going to be the greatest Straw Hat moment yet, between Usopp's dream, the idea of what it means to be a brave warrior of the sea, the reality of Usopp's character, and Oda's love for Vikings. There's so much potential for a legendary storyline. It's insane. Plus, We can also potentially get Usopp versus Loki. Loki is likely based on Utgarda Loki, the king of the giants. He is a bit different from the trickster god Loki, but he also challenges gods with various deceptive contests. Considering the context of One Piece, he'd challenge Luffy, the sun god, and may take on an antagonistic role during the Elbaf Arc. Now Loki is also the perfect opponent for Oda to do the David versus Goliath storyline. Loki is a giant who relies on deceptive trickery. Usopp is a coward who also relies on deceptive trickery, but Usopp's dream is to become a brave warrior. When it comes to literature, David versus the Goliath narrative has become a metaphor where an underdog faces a seemingly insurmountable opponent, and this metaphor emphasizes themes like courage and faith because the situation requires David to overcome his fears and be brave against Goliath. Finally, the last thing that is definitely going to happen during the Elbaf Arc is Ragnarok. In chapter 1113, Vegapunk declared that the world is going to sink into the ocean. We know that Elbaf is based on Norse mythology, and in Norse mythology, there is an apocalypse called Ragnarok. It is a series of events that lead to the world's end. The earth literally sinks into the sea. But, after all is said and done, the earth resurfaces from the sea, renewed and fertile. The same is going to happen to the One Piece world. We already know that the world sank 800 years ago, and now it's going to sink further into the ocean. Oda loves his time bombs, and so Ragnarok is going to be the time bomb for the end game. Monkey D. Dragon and the Revolutionary Army have already started securing land and resources. It's real. It's happening. But after Luffy finds the One Piece and brings about the dawn of the world, the Earth will also re-emerge from the seas, renewed and fertile. The ancient weapons will be used to revive the world to how it was before this ancient battle started. Things are going to get extremely, extremely worse for everyone at the end of Elbaf. But after Luffy finds the One Piece, he'll be the first to bring the dawn to the entire world in the most literal sense of this term. Not as Joy Boy or Nika, but as Monkey D. Luffy, the Pirate King. And with that said, guys, these are the 10 things that will definitely happen in the Elbaf arc. The setup is much, much more intricate than any other arc in One Piece. Add that with the idea that Oda loves to surprise us, and you've got a story arc that truly has the potential to be the best in One Piece's history. But let me know what you guys think of all this. Come on, let's continue this conversation in the comments section down below. Do like the video, and of course, also subscribe to our channel AJ Anime, and hit the bell icon so that you're the first to know whenever I cook up something new and exciting. Also guys, share your own thoughts on what you think may happen in Elbaf. We can still get much higher, am I right or what?